Now, I am excited to introduce our next conversation, building mental fitness, learning to master your own mind. Amy Yip is a life transformation and mental fitness coach who works with high achieving, ambitious women going through transitions to tap into their potential and bridge the gap between where they are now and where they want to be, even if that destination isn't totally clear yet. Her passion for coaching is to empower people to realize their full potential, let go of their shoulds, and be the author of their own life story, because if you don't tell your story, someone else will. In January 2020, after over 16 years of building and leading global teams and organizations like Google, Clorox, Booz Allen, Amy left the corporate world, sold everything, and took a one-way flight to Ghana with her husband to volunteer as a volunteer at a breast cancer nonprofit and travel the world. COVID shifted their plans. They got stuck in Ghana for 7 months. And one of her greatest learnings in that time was your mindset, not your circumstance, makes all the difference in your happiness and success. Through this lens, she works with clients to find their voice and the courage to speak up, build self-confidence, navigate change, and discover what they really want to do in their life and career. Now, it is my pleasure to moderate this conversation. So let's get started. Amy, thank you so much for being here. And before we jump into questions, is there anything else you'd like to share about your personal or professional journey to help us set the stage?
No, I think you covered most of it. But thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've had the pleasure of speaking with you before, but
yeah,
I know that it might be the first time for some folks here. And I love the work that you're doing. I think your story is so interesting. And just, the fact that you are always able to find ways to think differently and shift your mindset in order to realign. And I just love your message. So that's just, spoiler alert. This is what we're diving into, everyone. So bring your best face today. So let's demystify this mental fitness. So what is mental fitness all about? And more specifically, is it the same as mental health?
Yeah. So mental fitness is essentially your capacity to respond to life's challenges with positive mindset rather than getting upset and stressed. And so in order to bring this to life, I like to use a physical analogy. So let's say you're of average physical fitness, then you could probably climb small hills pretty easily. But what if we put a big mountain in front of you and you're just of average physical fitness, then you would not be able to handle it, because what would be happening as you're climbing it? Your heart would be pounding, you'd be out of breath, you'd be physically stressed, and it would be difficult to handle it. The same thing is happening to many of us with what is going on in the world today. So with the pandemic, working from home, not working from home, politics, race relations, the wars. And so most of us are of average mental fitness, which means we could handle the hills of life with relative ease. But what's happening in the world right now is like this huge mountain. So what ends up happening is that we're getting stressed. We're unable to handle what it brings without getting upset and stressed. And to be clear, mental fitness is not the same as mental health. So it's not about healing. It's not about fixing. Another analogy I like to use here to bring this to life is a physical one. So let's say you're about to run a marathon. You wouldn't necessarily run the marathon day of without training beforehand, right? And so it really is, mental fitness is around how do we be proactive, train ahead of time so that we could get more fit, so that the day of marathon, we are able to run it with ease.
I love that. Thank you for the analogies. I'm a visual learner, so that really helped put things into perspective also for me. Mm-hmm. And you're completely right with the mountain that we're faced with today. And, I've always questioned on, it's always been interesting, the expression moving mountains, because I feel like it brings in this like superhuman power that we don't have. We have to climb it or go around it or live with it or make a cave. There are different ways to coexist with the mountain. So I love this, preparing to go to the other side or reach the top, being proactive about that so that it doesn't feel like, we're hitting a wall or we're getting, doors slammed in our face. So I really appreciate that visualization there. Now, I definitely recommend our live callers look at your website and go through your blogs, and please shout out, how they can find you as well. But I would love for those who haven't had a chance yet to check out your website, for you to share why having strong mental fitness is important. And again, you do a lot of explaining on your website with your blogs, but can you let us know why it's important?
Yeah. So having stronger mental fitness allows you to master your mind, like the topic of today's conversation, right? And so when you are able to master your own mind, you create lasting change, you can shift your focus. So consider this. Why is change so hard? Right? Why is it that you read tons of books, attend all these workshops, and get really excited about information, and you leave these and you're like, I am determined to change. And then what happens? A few days later, you go back to your old ways. And the reason for this is because 20% of change comes from insight and knowledge, which means reading those books, attending the workshops. 80% of change comes from mental muscle and habit. So, for example, do you want to get healthier? What does it take to get healthier? Do you know? And most people do. Most people say, I need to sleep 7, 8 hours, drink 8 ounces of water or eight cups of water a day, get some movement, eat healthier, right? So if you know what it takes to get healthier, what's standing in your way? And the thing is, we all know lots of things, but knowledge and insight is only 20% of change. So mental, muscle, and habit is what creates that change. 80% of it comes from mental, muscle, and habit. And the other thing is that mental fitness helps you to shift your focus. So what you call your experience right here, 80% of that is being generated from the information inside of your head. Only 20% is the actual circumstance. So 20% comes from the actual circumstance. 80% is in your mind, right? For example, how many thoughts do you have per day? Take a wild guess.
Oh my goodness, thousands. I know. I don't even want to put a number to it. Too many, I'll say.
There are 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day. And everyone can think about this next question. How many of those 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day, what percentage are negative? And you can come up with a percentage. It's 80%. 80% is negative. How many of those thoughts, what percentage of the 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day do you think are repeated day after day after day? It's 95%. And so out of the 12 to 60,000 thoughts, 80% are negative, 95% are repeated day after day after day. And what consumes your mind consumes your life. That is why growing mental fitness matters so much, right? It helps create a lasting change. It helps to shift your focus.
I love this. It's such a beautiful way to feel that we can be proactive, right? And how we see the world and see ourselves in the world. We've been talking, several speakers have brought up throughout today's summit, how visibility or representation or the opposite of those two things affect, how we share as a culture and individually, right? So knowing those stats that you just threw our way, like most of that is coming from what we're consuming online or even in books and in, film. Someone threw out like Hollywood is even doing this, and people are saying social media and the news. So it really takes an effort to, create this safe space so that we can realize, okay, what is this that I'm continuing to repeat to myself? Is it keeping me healthy? Am I benefiting from this? Am I hurting myself? Am I hurting other people? So I love this internal dialogue that you are raising also to our awareness. And I love also that you're comparing this to, being physically fit. So let's hop into that a little more. So with physical fitness, you have different muscles, right? That you work out: triceps, biceps, quads, hamstrings, etc. That you work on to get stronger. Now, when it comes to mental fitness, are there also different types of focal points, when it comes to mental fitness?
Yes, there are three muscles. So there is a lot of research on this, and what it has found is there are three core muscles behind mental fitness. So the first one is the saboteur interceptor muscle. The second is sage perspective. And the third is the self command. And I'm sure everybody is wondering, what the heck are those? I will dive into those. But before I go into the three muscles, something I love analogies if you can't tell, but another analogy that I want to use is Star Wars. So, what is happening inside our brain is there's this constant war going on between the Jedi and the Darth Vader. And, how I experience this all the time. I don't know about you, but, I know a lot of people experience that there's this inner Jedi and this Darth Vader and this war going on between these two characters inside the mind. And that's one of the reasons why we love Star Wars so much, because it's what's happening on our mind on screen. And so essentially, you can think about the Darth Vader as saboteur, which is why one of the muscles is called the saboteur interceptor. And then you can think of the inner Jedi as the sage, which is why a second muscle that I talk about is the sage muscle. So really developing and growing that inner Jedi within you.
I love that. I feel like I was able to access it a little more just by you breaking that down.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And also just, the way that we can learn from different stories that we're telling ourselves, and that we are consuming, also the stories that we consume on media or Hollywood, like you just brought up the Star Wars analogy. So I really appreciate this. It's just bringing it down to a base level, and of course we can do the research on all of the lofty words and phrases that maybe we don't know, but it's great to hear that there are these focal muscles or these focal points that we can nourish, essentially, so that we can have resiliency, and also again, setting those boundaries, right? I would also just love to know your opinion, just going a little off topic. There seems to be a wave of things like imposter syndrome, burnout, in the workplace. When it comes specifically to, let's say, women in the workplace and Asian women in the workplace, how can we support each other more in this, proactive journey of mental resiliency, and also just the strong mental fitness that you're speaking to?
Yeah. So with mental fitness, the three muscles, the first one was that saboteur interceptor. And that is really around recognizing who your saboteurs are. And the research has shown that there are 10 different saboteurs, and the master of them all is called the judge. And I'm sure we are all aware of the judge of self, also known as the inner critic, judge of others, of like, oh, that one's too skinny, that one's too stupid, that one's too slow. And then the judge of circumstances, of this situation is bad, I can't be happy until I get a promotion, until I have a certain salary, until I have whatever that is, right? So the judge is the master saboteur. The research has found there are 9 friends to the judge, and we have some extent of some or a few of these 9 friends. And these friends are the controller, the hyperachiever, the restless, the stickler, the pleaser, the hypervigilant, the avoider, the victim, the hyper rational. What a cast of characters, right? And the thing with a lot of women in particular, or within the AAPI community, is there is a trend, and it could be a cultural, environmental thing. It could also be partially just how we were raised. So some of the top saboteurs that we have, the hyperachiever and the pleaser, those are 2 top ones. And the thing with to answer your question of how we can help the community, one is just recognizing who are your saboteurs. And that's what that first muscle is all around, is getting to know your saboteurs so well that you can catch them in the act. So for example, the hyperachiever, and a lot of people actually ask me, well, isn't it, how could it be a bad thing? Isn't achieving a good thing? And I'll tell you, one of my top saboteurs is the hyperachiever. So I thought the same thing at first. And the way to think about saboteurs is like a strength overused. So a knife, for example, can be used by someone like a surgeon to save someone's life. It can also be used by someone like a murderer to kill someone. So saboteurs use your strength in a way that doesn't serve you. So back to that hyperachiever, strengths are very goal-oriented, can be inspiring, grows, reaches their full potential. But the impact of the saboteur is, so for example, joy is short-lived. It tells me that you will be happy when you achieve something. And I was like this for a long time, where I'm like, oh yeah, once I get to the top of the mountain, I'll be happy. But then the question is, was I really happy? How long was I up there celebrating? And to be honest, I would be close to the mountaintop and I'd be like, oh yeah, it's right there. I'm about to get there. I'm not celebrating. I'm already looking for the next mountain to climb. So it became this exhausting, I'm going to climb mountain after mountain after mountain. And I was never actually happy by achieving the thing that this hyperachiever saboteur told me. And so to help each other, it's really around recognizing, saboteurs motivate you through these negative emotions. I don't like the word negative emotions, but I use that term here to categorize like things like fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity, because I truly do not believe there's anything that is a negative emotion or positive emotions or just emotions. But, that's the thing with understanding the saboteur. It's about awareness. So how does the judge show up? Which saboteurs do I have and how do they show up in my life? And how do I intercept it before it negatively impacts me?
I love that. And I have a personal story that's coming to mind as you're saying this like the self-judgment, and learning how to be a little ahead of that, or learning when it's coming out, and just politely saying, you know what, you can stay in the back seat, self-judgment. I'm driving right now. I don't really need you to drive this car. Like, relax, and I'm like having a conversation with one of the characters that you mentioned, full on play going on in my mind. But I have found that to be very helpful, because I don't let that, that self-judgment drive and, have, and then become hostage, right, to myself. So as you like analogies, I wanted to throw that in there because that's just something that has come in my own lived experience. And I hope that's helpful for someone listening right now.
Yeah. And I love that. And, oftentimes when our inner critics, our saboteurs show up, we want to get angry, like, why are you here? Go away. And the thing is, when you get angry with it and try to shove it into the closet, you're essentially giving it more power. And so something that I always suggest to people is name it and stop. Name that. I have character names for my saboteur. So my hypervigilant, I call her Miss Worrywart. And when Miss Worrywart shows up, I'm like, oh, there you are again, Miss Worrywart. I don't get mad at her. I recognize that she is here. And then I stop.
I have also named myself sabotager as well. So I love this. I'm aligned with you, Amy. I love your work. And I'm like, okay, check, done that. So actually this brings me to the next question here. So let's say someone strengthens all three of these muscles. What's next? How do they go from, I'm going to put myself in this position as well. How do we go from having strong muscles to then being able to master our minds?
Okay. Well, before we can put it all together, let's dive into the other two muscles. And so the saboteur interceptor was all around getting to know your Darth Vader and being able to become aware of it and catching it, calling it out, right? Pausing. The second muscle is that sage. So it's the inner Jedi muscle, right? Strengthening that inner Jedi. And the sage perspective, that muscle is really around recognizing every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or opportunity, right? Every circumstance can be turned into gift or opportunity, even if it's not obvious in the moment. At some point, you will look back and you'll be able to see it as a gift or opportunity. An example of this, how many of you have been part of a relationship ending? It could be a romantic one, it could be some other one. I've been through many breakups. During the breakup itself, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the end of my world. Like my heart is broken. I'll never find another person. And it feels horrible. And I don't know how I'm going to get out of this situation. And now looking back at those situations, I think it was the best gift ever. The situation or circumstance did not change, but it is my mindset and what has shifted. And it turned into gift or opportunity because had those breakups not happened, I would not be with the most amazing husband today, right? I'd be with one of those guys. And so every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or an opportunity, right? And so it really is about where your focus is, right? If you decided to go buy a red Jeep today, tomorrow, what would you see more of? You'd see a lot of red Jeeps. And is it because everybody decided to buy red Jeeps? No, it is because that's where your focus is. And so that second muscle is all around developing your sage perspective of being able to see the gift or opportunity. And then the third muscle that I mentioned is the self-command. The thing is, if you are in saboteur mode, when your inner critic is harsh, when your, hypervigilance is harsh, it is hard to shift right away to, oh, what's the gift or opportunity, right? Like you're in that negative space. And so this third muscle is around shifting. And the thing is, a lot of people think they are in control of their own mind. My question is, well, do you still respond from a place of anxiety, frustration, guilt, shame, anger, even though you know it doesn't serve you? And so I will look at everyone out there and say, you are not in command of your own mind. Because if you were in command of your own mind, would you really wake yourself up at 3 a.m. worrying about things like your to-do list or, a presentation you have to make tomorrow? It's not something you would choose for yourself. So the reason is you're not running your own mind. Oftentimes your mind is running the show, and too often from that saboteur mode. So this third muscle is around shifting from the saboteur mode into this inner Jedi sage mode. And to do this, I want to actually demonstrate something that we can all do together to shift. Sound good? Okay. So pick your 2 favorite fingertips, whichever 2 fingertips. You could keep your eyes open, you could keep your eyes closed. And I want you to rub your 2 fingertips together with such attention that you can feel all the fingertip ridges. Just notice all the sensations of touch on both fingertips. Now, that was about 10 seconds. And if I were to put your head into an MRI machine, what you would notice with just that 10 seconds is it ever so slightly quieted the side where your saboteurs lived, and it ever so slightly activated the region where sage lives. So that was just 10 seconds, won't change the world, but imagine if you did that all the time. It's like if you did lots of bicep reps, right, before you needed to use the biceps, then that muscle would be strong. And so there are lots of different ways for doing the self-command muscle. There's ones with visual, with sound. We're only going to have time to do one because we're almost at time, but just know that there are lots of ways to do this. So you need to figure out like which ones resonate with you and which ones work best for you. And so how do you put all 3 of those together? 3 easy steps. First step is notice and stop. So when you notice that you're in certain emotions like anger, frustration, guilt, shame, any of those things that I call negative emotions, then you stop. It doesn't matter who is doing what to you, what's happening in the world. You feel those negative emotions, stop. You can call her out. Like I call her Miss Worrywart. I see Miss Worrywart. I stop. Okay. Second step is to then shift your awareness. And you do that with these reps, with that second muscle, the self-command, because you're basically trying to command your mind over. So you could do these reps. And the third step is then to activate your sage. So that third muscle of that sage of, well, what is the gift or opportunity here? How might I turn this into a gift or opportunity? Could I possibly see a gift or opportunity here? And so that's how you put it together of like using these 3 muscles. Step 1, notice and stop. Step 2, shifting that awareness. Step 3, activating that sage perspective of seeing the gift or opportunity.
Oh, yes, Amy, I love this. So something that really called my attention that I really appreciate in one of your blogs, and you probably mention this often, is to be kind to yourself through this process, because you're shaking up a lot of stuff, right? You're like, it's like cleaning up a house, and before it gets clean, it's going to get messy, right? You're going to pull things out and got a lot of dust going around. And so how can one make sure that, kindness and grace is being practiced, as we are building these new muscles?
Well, first of all, and I love that question. First of all, it is understanding and recognizing that it is okay to have saboteurs. We all have it. It is part of the survival brain. And actually, they have served you in some capacity. They're here to do something, right? It's just sitting in that space is not helpful. It's like having your hand on a hot stove. How long do you want that warning sign to be there? right? You don't want to keep your hand on the hot stove, and too often we're keeping our hand on the hot stove. So it really is around like recognizing your hand on the hot stove and then shifting. And so really like building that mental fitness, recognizing that it's okay to have saboteurs. We all have them. I have them. They're never going to go away. It really is around shrinking the amount of time that the saboteur grabs you. How long do I want to sit in that space? How long do I want my hand on the hot stove?
Oh, your analogies are on it. The hand on the hot stove. Yes, it's so key. It's like, no, 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 I don't want that.
Mm-hmm. Like,
And if I
and
do, it's like,
some of us,
ouch.
some of us keep our hand on the hot stove. We're like, oh yeah, maybe it'll go away. Let me look away. Let me hope it goes away. And it doesn't. And so it's recognizing like, okay, yeah, hand on the hot stove it's good to feel that pain, because then I recognize something needs to change, but let's not keep our hand there.
Yes, preach it. Amy, you are such a light in this space. I just really appreciate you encouraging us to tap into this. I would even say, uncharted territories to a certain extent, just because of all of the things that we must unlearn in order to confidently walk into this space to say, I'll try it out, I'll try this out. Because I know, Amy, some people might be listening to you like, no, 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 this is too much. I don't want to. That means I have to be vulnerable. That means I have to do face certain challenges that I'm not ready to face. So I just want to encourage people to step fully into this space, and also reach out to Amy if you have any questions. I put her website and also her LinkedIn in the chat there, so please feel free to build your community around this very timely and necessary topic. Amy, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Last words, because I know you might have another analogy you want to throw out there. Any last words for folks who are listening right now?
I would say just be kind to yourself, know your saboteurs, and yeah, just keep building that mental fitness. We focus so much on building the physical fitness, keep building the mental fitness. It makes a difference.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure, Amy. Good luck in all of your ventures. I'm so happy to always, share virtual space with you.